sent me a message, I actually appreciate that you took it from an idea-based perspective instead of ever resorting to personal attack. Like, if this movement is actually going to be dangerous, do we need to understand it so that we can take it down? I knew going into it that this might be a hot mess. I'm not going to have those guys back on my channel again. Absolutely not.
'79T 2458 Learning Corp Little Red Riding Hood, take one.
I should really update that. There's like a whole skyscraper there now. They finished a whole skyscraper. It only took them 4 years. The neighbors are coming in. Welcome, guys. Good morning. God, this show's been going on for like 4 or 5 years now. It's still, you know what? I like it. Like, it's not giant. It's not like a Rolo stream with 1,000 people watching. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because every time I sneak into one of his Sunday things, and I've learned this lesson from Rob and that, is that, like, don't say anything if I'm watching anybody else's stream, because it, like, derails things. I don't like doing that. Anyways, the point of that one was, I like this week. No one has done anything stupid. Like, stupid. Everybody's been, for the most part, just living their life. And I'm here for it, because it's like, I don't know if I could handle another week of somebody ruining their life, going to jail, ending up dying in police custody. It's like, I used to think, I was talking about this on the T-Rex stream with the guys on Friday, but I used to think, yeah, that time in the military is probably the most dangerous time of my life. Like, I lost, and it wasn't even like wartime. I had a few friends that went to Afghanistan. They all came home, thank God. Canada only lost, I think it was 167 people in the war on terror in Afghanistan. But in my career of people that I knew or work with or were friends with, I think I lost maybe 5 friends over the 13 years. Yeah, there was one guy, his dad was a chief. He fell off of Thetis Lake and got caught under a log. Another one got hit by a car in San Diego. The third one was in basic training. He unalived himself. And the other two, what were the other two? Oh yeah, one guy fell off a ship and then washed up ashore in Dutchland. And I'm trying to remember the fifth now. Anyways, it doesn't really matter. And then I thought about, I'm like, how dangerous is it to be a stupid manosphere influencer? It's like, how many people have we lost? Kevin Samuels died. Alan Roger Curry died. Coach Red Pill died in the stupidest way possible. Who else are we missing here? Was it Tom Torreo? Ended up unaliving himself? And I'm like, and there's in the Canadian military, there's about 80,000 there was 80,000 sailors, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken on the numbers, but 50 to 80,000, something like that. It's a very small force. And to lose 6. Meanwhile, to come in here on this influencer, how many influencers are there, like, really on YouTube and Twitter and all that stuff? There's like, what, 30, 40? We've already lost like 4. This is the most dangerous job I've ever had. I mean, it's all self-inflicted problems, but at the same time, it's like, dude. It was like that video on YouTube they showed you where you found out the most dangerous job in America was the president, because they've only had like 42 of them, or 43 or however many, and they've already lost like 4 of them. You're like, that's 10% chance you're going to get shot. I'm like, oh, fair enough. There's just about 60,000 members left. Dude, they're bleeding numbers. It's telling if nobody's stepping on their own D in a week is a story. Oh, I agree. It was one of those interesting things. All these guys here talking about, I wish men were men and things were dangerous. And then you go to like, what's the actual danger? Turns out the danger is being bored and wanting to be famous. That's what causes all the problems. If none of you guys wanted to be popular and opine about, and you know the funniest thing too about Coach Red Pills, he's my favorite because nobody gives a shit about the Ukrainian war anymore. They gave a crap about it, and then Israel and Gaza, and now that's gone. Does anybody even care about any of this stuff anymore? Or are we still going to have people pretending unironically that the Gillette Boys Will Be Boys commercial was the end of men? Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But then again, That's the weird thing. And here's where I'm going to shit on the audience. Because you know me, I have to shit on the audience. Everybody loves to say, oh, I can't be bothered to watch this nonsense. Oh, this is horrible. Oh, these people are so ridiculous, so retarded. And then they watch it religiously because they want to have their views of being above it and better than this validated. And look, I normally, if I'm part of the problem, I'll say, yep, I'm part of the problem. In this case, I'm not part of the problem. I have never watched a Pearl cast. I don't know what to even call it. I have never watched an emergency podcast with Tate. I've never watched an episode of Fresh and Fit. I think of grand total of 5 minutes in 10-second spurts. 99% of the time, when I'm giving you an opinion on something, it's because somebody else told me, or I just saw the title of a tweet and I'm like, I already know where this is going and I've never been wrong. Yeah, it's rubbernecking. And I realize that it's kind of, so I don't want to say it's your fault. Like it's not your fault. It's their fault because they're, grown men. They can make their own decisions, but it's kind of your fault, Because audience capture is a bitch. And I am surprised. Like, there needs to be some kind of university accredited system, but not like a stupid one about influencing concerns. Because, like, audience capture is probably one of the most important things I think you need to learn about this. Because most people who want to entertain for a living and yap in front of a camera, they're usually like a horrible need to be loved from their childhood. And they don't have it. Nonstop Dre, $2 super chat. We know Couch is so alpha that problems have him. Are we still doing that, Dre? We're putting in the Chuck Norris quotations with alpha instead? Come on, man. You're better. I mean, you're not better than this, but you're better than this. Yeah, audience capture. So you start doing a thing because you enjoy it and you like it and you like talking about the thing. And the audience resonates with it and they start doing well. And then all of a sudden the audience starts like, hey, you know what would be great if you did this? And you're like, you know what? These guys are a great audience. Why don't I do that? And that's how audience capture starts. And then eventually you get to the point where the audience is getting you to do dumb stuff. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but most people you'll never know your audience ever. And I know that, and bear with me. I know this is like, what's the deal with Aaron? Like, I know it's that kind of comedic thing. If you guys don't know that reference, it's fine. But yeah, it's weird. So of the 100 people that would watch something that you put out there, anything, a book, a piece of content, anything, maybe 10% of them will like it or be subscribed to you or somehow engage to the point that you know they exist. And of those 10%, maybe like 1% of them will comment or like engage to the point you get to see or hear their opinion. And then the problem is, and this is like an old Reddit study, I think I've talked about it before, where they found that a predominant reason that somebody wants to engage with you is because they want to yell. They want to be angry. They want to anger. And it's usually not even about you. You just happen to be the guy there while their dad screwed them over that afternoon or something like that. And so if you start listening to, oh my God, green lights, good to see you, sir. So it gets to the point that you have 100 people watching your show, 9 people like, and 1 guy calls you a dick. And then you start to think, oh my God, I better lean into all this hate and get all this attention. Completely alienating people. To the point that they watch your shit going, well, I'm glad I'm not an idiot like this guy here who's opining about the Ukraine war from within Ukraine, getting arrested by the Ukraine police. Super Nazis, or whatever they call them. And I kind of figured that out when I was watching old Jordan Peterson stuff, when you watch how in the beginning, Peterson was just a clinical psychologist going, or a psychiatrist going, I'm going to do clinical psychiatry stuff online. I'm just going to post the things out. You guys basically get free therapy. And everybody's like, wow, this is great. This is amazing. And he's like, oh, by the way, you can't force me to register with the Troons. And then all the fucking liberals got mad. And then all the conservatives was like, dude, that pissed off those godless liberals. Let's get this guy. And then they gave him diazepams and they ruined him. And I'm like, I refuse to have you guys do it to me. What does this have to do with anything? That's the question. What is he talking about? What does this have to do with me? Well, it's my clumsy, clunky, and good segue into the acute and the residual anger phase. We don't really have like a good name for it. Nonstop Dre again, $2 super chat. What are your thoughts on soft guy era trend? I don't know what that is. Somebody know what a soft guy era is? I feel bad. I wish I knew what it was, Dre. I really do. I really wish I knew what it was. I don't. And I know it's like, oh, what a boomer. Like, I can't keep up with every trend. Every niche trend is too hard to follow. I'm gonna guess soft guy era is about guys acting like weeshes. Yeah, that's funny. I just made a Seinfeld tweet. I'm fond of the "I'm a $6 million high value man" rant. So what's it to you? Yeah, those ones. All right. 2 more seconds of rambling, and we're getting back to the point. Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. Because I think what it is for most people, like you're the guys in here that I know are well-adjusted people. Some of you have families, some of you are single. You're all gainfully employed, as far as I can tell. Maybe the Andrew Tate's Romanian passport doesn't have a job anymore, but the market in Romania is a bit down. Oh, and green light. We got to get you whitelisted on the SMP again. Come back. We've missed you. Yeah, so like well-adjusted people, and then you, as you go around in life, you kind of, well, this guy's kind of bullshit, and you kind of cut him out of your circle. And this guy's bullshit. Oh, this new guy, he's all right. We'll bring him in. And you work. Most of your adult life is spent curating the community that you're surrounded. So everybody around you is generally well-adjusted enough, within a range. Marty, well-adjusted within a range. You don't really deal with bullshit people. Then you get online and you see some guy, he kind of like on the surface, he's like, oh yeah, I own a house. And you're like, I own a house. He goes, I make 100,000 a year. You're like, I make 100,000 a year. He goes, yeah, I'm an alpha male. You're like, all right. And you forget that people just flat out lie because you can't call out anybody's bullshit anymore. Because how are you going to know? Like, all you know of me is the stuff that's in my den. I have some paintings from the Chicago Modern Art Museum. Not Wassily Kandinsky. Why am I drawing a fucking blank on the goddamn name? Hold up a sec. This is, as the artist in me is embarrassed. Andy Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein. That's the one. These are Lichtensteins. And that's all you know. For all you know, I could have like a grape dungeon on the other side there. You don't know. Yeah, in wrestling. So people are able to curate things. It really is like, it's an amplified narcissism incubator. It's fucking crazy, man. Like I can tell you guys, I'm an alpha male pimp running a cam whore business out of Romania, a bunch of casinos, all this stuff. And you'll just believe me, because why not? He's similar to you. He says some things that you say, he makes sense sometimes. Why wouldn't you? Why would somebody lie on the internet? And then you see, slowly after surely, it's like an old industrial warehouse that's been repurposed. It's an empty house, no furniture in it. The boys play video games. It's like, what the hell? Everything they told me is a lie. They end up getting accused of a bunch of crimes, and then lo and behold, 6 months into the accusations, they're like, by the way, there's another 18 accusations. They're like, what? They found more? It's like, no, there's new ones. Yeah, everybody knows Couch's real height is not 6'3". Exactly, Nonstop Dre. Exactly. I'm disappointed in the anti-oil folks. Never threw soup on a Warhol painting. Well, they're not paintings. They're lithographs, Chuck Royale. They're lithographs. Lithograph is like silk screening is the closest I can explain a lithograph on. I'm not very good with the tech, but it was like, I remember they always had that stupid stone grinding it out in my art class back when I was in college. So the acute phase and the other anger phase, we'll get to that. We'll stop rambling about how internet makes you stupid.
Baby, I love you! Baby!
All right, we're going to do the short one. We're doing the short one today, and then we're going to get into it. And that's all I got. Join T-Rex Army, Digital Ryan, second channel. It's fun. You have way more fun than you do talking about our dicks.
If you're sitting there going, oh, my wife's a 3, I play Tekken for pennies, my name's Ryan Stone, your life sucks. So he actually nailed it. Don't start something you won't learn to finish. Everyone's having a bit fainted. My name's Ryan Stone, I play Tekken for pennies, chill a little bit, and just go, you know what, Tate's got it.
What's wrong with me, man? Yeah, so There's the anger. Everybody knows the anger face. I think I just did an episode on that, 2 weeks ago, last week, something like that. It's my favorite ad. It's mine too. I like the full 2-minute version, but the short 20-second ones are good too. I have a few of them. Everybody knows the anger phase. Some acute trauma happens. You get zeroed out. Causes an anger. Anger is a human emotion. It's a social emotion. It's one of the few male emotions that also carries a social signal with it. The idea is you have a grievance mixed with pain. You did this to me. You crushed my worldview. It's almost like a narcissistic injury. And then the big part of the red pill is, first off, you get the guy to understand that your anger is there for a reason. It's not invalid. The reason you feel angry is for very good reasons. And that's the first way to get a guy past that. It's not that anger is bad, it's that anger has a use, and nobody's willing to guide guys out of it. So you point him in a direction. Here's some weights. Get that shit out of your system so you're not, sitting here shaking all day. And then now that you got that, realize the grievance is real. And these are some things that guys have done to address the grievance. Welcome to the red pill. Then you get into, you're out of the anger phase. Oh, it's great. I remember this, man. Mine was awesome. I was in there in the military. The Ottawa JAG dropped all charges. Like, yeah, this charge is ridiculous. You guys have sat on shit on the pot, wait 14 months by Queen's regulation and orders, which are like our constitution in the military. Should have been done in 12. You had 12 months to do this, so clearly just nobody cares and nobody wants to do their job. By the way, the military police in Montreal and Quebec have done such a crappy job and broke so many regulations that we're just going to remove any ability to do investigative work over there. We're going to leave everything to NCIS or local police if that's the case. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So my CO's like, all right, we need a NavCom in our department. And the crew manager's like, why? So you can break another one? No, you deal with what you got. And he tells me, he's like, go in there, prove him wrong. Prove him wrong, sir. I'm like, all right, whatever. Thanks for the speech, Skipper. And the CO sent a letter. Hi, we're desperate for people. This guy's a bag of shit. Doesn't do his job. And I think the one thing, like he went to college, but he can't write at a college level. I think that was his thing, which, fair. But we're desperate and we need him. And I was like, right there, that line, yeah. I didn't even care. He's like talking me a piece of shit for an entire official more correspondence, but like, yeah, but we need him. I framed that and I put it on my thing, and beside it, I framed the thing from Ottawa saying, you guys are incompetent. Get this man out of here. And of course, there was a guy, my coxswain actually looked a little bit like Rob Says. You guys know Rob, right? And he came in, he laughed, shook my hand, thought it was funny. The officers came in, pretend that they weren't there on the desk, and just kind of ignored it. And I wrote a post, an essay, a field report at the time, talking about 30 days from retirement. I was ready. I was done. I was leaving the military career-wise. It wasn't working for me. I got to do something else. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm like out, like there's no anger with me anymore. I'm having fun. I'm doing my stuff. The sex life is great. Like everything is on the up and up. And I think this stuff is great. It's like almost like a cheerleader thing, right? And so I go off and I do my thing. And it was just funny because like I started writing. This was like, and then around the time when I was just about to start writing fuck files, I went back. I'm like, oh, I got to look through my old field report, see if I could find anything I could use for the book. And so I went through the old 30 days until retirement field report. And I was like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? And this is kind of where I got that mental model that I tell you guys. Like, if you're not looking back at your old field reports and just wincing at how cringy you were, then you haven't grown. And I realized that I did. And so I made another field report, like, 30 days before retirement, 2 years later. And I realized, like, I'm still angry. I was still angry. I was so angry. It's just, I was so hopped up on my own, moderate successes up until that point that I just mistook the anger for excitement. And then I started looking into it more. A lot of the other guys, they started writing about their experience. It turns out every guy has this. So there was like a couple phases. Which was nice, where it's, you have your anger phase. Yeah, you get angry, the zeroing out, same stuff like before. And then you're given some things to do. And so it's one of those, like, you bury yourself in your work. You start lifting like a madman. You start going through all the sidebar stuff. You start trying out to use Amuse Mastery for the first time. You start trying Agree and Amplify for like all the assertiveness tools, the nice guys tools, the covert contracts. And you're mostly concerned about just doing the job and getting better at the skill. So you're not worried about how you feel. At least you try not to be. I mean, everybody does at first. And then what happens is it's like, yeah, you have your main event. You know, girl starts sobbing and crying and like, I don't know how to keep you loyal and happy. What do I do? And it's pretty gratifying as a guy. Dude, your wife's been an absolute, like a frigid bitch to you or whatever it is that she's done to cause you to be angry enough to want to go on the internet to solve your problems, you know, like that angry. And now she's sitting there crying and asking for you back. It's like, oh, yeah. And you don't feel like lording it over her like you're, take that, bitch. It's not like the fresh and fit shit. Because at that point, you've done your internal work and you're like, it's a good place to be. It's like the culmination of sometimes up to like a year or two of work. Bam, right there in front of you. And you're like, awesome. I'm the fucking man. Then you enter. I have to wordsmith some stuff for this. Like, it was really catchy. It's like the 6 months of being an insufferable asshole. When like your shit doesn't stink, you're walking on water. It's great. And everybody does it. MLD John did it. I did it. Bogey D6 did it. Everybody I know who's ever red pilled anything has had it at a certain point. When they make their first $1 million, when they do their first this, they do their first that, all that stuff. And it's funny because it's such alienating stuff. Everybody's like, oh, he's insufferable. He's driving me nuts. And I kind of just, you know, from experiences from mine guys, like, look, man, everybody does this. It's 6 months. Let him blow off some steam. He'll calm down, level out, and everything will be fine. Just don't take it personally. It's not about you. Let him have his success. And then sometimes you bring up, you were kind of like that too around this time too, weren't you? You're like, all right, fair enough. Yeah. And then when you're in this phase, that's the problem, is that everything is awesome and you're always excited. You're still angry. Like the stuff is still there that you have to work on. The difference is you're able to work on it now and you have tools to manage it, but the grievance hasn't gone away and the pain hasn't gone away. It's just that now you have a solution and you're right in the high of that honeymoon phase. And during this phase is when that acute anger goes away and then that residual anger sticks around. This is where a lot of guys will have issues with covert contracts, especially. You see a bunch of things that go into it, and I'll kind of get into like all the little things here. Like, for example, what was my, oh fuck, I forgot the timestamp. I'm such an idiot. 20 minutes. We'll just say 10 minutes. Hopefully, if you guys are watching this after the fact and you skip to the second timestamp, it makes sense. Because if it's not starting at the goddamn, at the stupid Tekken for Pennies ad, then we're fucked. Oh yeah, so there's a few things. I guess I'll clean up the notes a bit here. We'll put them into timestamp format. So some of the things that come with the residual anger phase, I've already talked about. I'll kind of expand on the 6 months insufferability. Then there's the how to describe, I guess, main event. Yeah, we'll talk about the main event. Nobody really talks about it because nobody in the red pill knows what the fuck they're doing. The 2-year singing and dancing monkey improvement program. That's the neat one too. They all get kind of catchy little names. And then when you're coming out the other end, what happens to it? So it's good. Now, I don't know what, like a lot of you guys, I know you're done. You've red pilled, you're in there, you're done, you're good. But a lot of you guys, oh, thank you very much, madam. A lot of you guys are starting, or you're about to start, or you're just dipping your foot in. There's always those guys too. And like, I think I was that guy. Everybody's that guy. Where your life's kind of shitty, but not really shitty. Like not enough to get zeroed out. And so you kind of dip your toe in the red pill stuff, but you don't really pay attention. You don't read the sidebar. You just kind of follow along with what the influencers and the people are writing. And you're like, it's good enough for me. Until something happens and then you get into it. So you could be one of those guys. And the reason I love talking about this stuff is because for a lot of guys, they're neurotic. They're anxious. They don't know what they're doing. They're a little worried about everything. The sky is always falling. The girl's always going to, like, as soon as you do something, she's going to leave you. And the one thing that I find is extremely helpful is when guys will talk about, oh, I'm having this issue right here. My wife's doing this. My wife's a 3. I take it for pennies. What do I do? And then you can just be like, bam, here's something from 8 years ago. And you guys like, dude, it's like, I wrote this one. You're like, yeah. Everybody gets what you get. Everybody. And it's okay. It's the confidence to know that it's already a traveled path and that you're not having to break new ground. I think gives guys a lot of, I don't even want to say confidence. I almost want to say the lack of neuroticism to be able to, yeah, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Null, 20 euro super chat. The worst thing you can do in the anger phase is try to red pill your friends from experience. Oh, God, yeah. I didn't even want to bring that up. I thought that was obvious, but yes. Oh, the anger phase guys are the greatest cheerleaders ever, and they're horrible. Or like, they were kind of what the start of "you must stick this bucket on your head right now" came from, when Whisper did that one about that. Because it's always these guys, like, they're still angry and they're trying to tell you how great this thing is. You got to get in there, and you're like, wow, why don't you wait a couple years till you're finished, sir? Then you can get into it. Yeah, real men have women that bring them coffee while streaming their podcast. Absolutely. Absolutely. In the merchandise cup, too, to boot. I never asked. Look at that. I love this thing. I'm actually going to go into the store. I'm going to redo. I got to source a new guy that gets me these. I'm going to see if I can get them in there cheaper. I want to get just like mass production going and like just have it as like a break-even business, because I would much rather have people having the mugs than to have it be a solo viable thing. But I'm redoing all of the merch. So that's coming out in the next little bit too. So that should be fun. And I'm also going to get the I know I've been promising it for like a year. The hardcovers of Praxeology will be coming out. The only decision I have to make right now is, do I just do hardcovers for Dread, Frame, and Fuck Files as is? Or am I going to do hardcover of like a combination? So like Praxeology Volume 1 and 2 into a single Praxeology book, which will be a big honker. And I don't know yet. Yeah. Finally, the hardcover. Yeah, it's easier to blame women for your situation than your own actions. Of course it is. That's your ego. Your ego always loves to keep things the status quo. The ego is there to have you accept what's happening right now. Don't change. It's not your fault. It's their fault. And if it's their fault, you have somebody to blame. It's not your fault. And oh, okay, I can put up with this nonsense. It's her fault. She's doing this to me. Yeah. And that's the thing about your ego, right? Yeah, here too. Guilty of trying to red pill my friends. They think you're in a cult and fight you the whole way. Yeah. And in fairness, if you like you now seeing that guy then try to like red pill you, it'd be the same thing. Like you see it. It's the same as when you watch a guy who doesn't know anything about red pill, I don't know, Fresh or Fit or whatever, talking about red pill, where you just kind of know, like, what the hell are you talking about? What the hell is this? It was always my least favorite thing. Whenever on the Patreon, we'd have new guys come in. It's like, hey, I found you through Fresh and Fit. And it was like right then, I knew that guy was going to be way more trouble than he was worth. They would, and they all did the same thing. They just spit out jargon. I'm going to oak the alpha, AWOL. And they're like, what? And they're just throwing the words out. They don't even know what they mean. They don't know the context. It's like, it's just shorthand things. It's like marketing buzzwords. You know, where's the beef? Agent 99? You're just like, what the fuck is he talking about? And then it turns out when you ask them, like, use your own words. I know what the jargon means. Do you know what the jargon means? I don't know. So when you're talking to me, I need to know we're on the same page. Use your own word. And then you find it's the same bullshit. That same, blue pill bullshit that gets guys in here. It's just they have a layer of abstraction around it so as to shield them from it. And then you realize that's all ego. Like well, I don't want to use the word favorite, but I can't. The most notable one I remember is this guy. I think I've met the one. Now hear me out on this. I know you guys say there is no tens, but this one is. And then he went on to describe a horrible choice. She was 25, head to toe, and and I don't mind tattoos. But when you start getting into neck tattoos and shit, that's when I'm like a tattoo that you can put a shirt over shows me the person at least has some measure of like understanding. It's something I can take on and put off, But yeah, and he's like that. She's a single mom. She does drugs and all this stuff. And I'm like, and I asked him, I'm like, what's the you keep saying she's a 10. And then all you've done is describe a horrible situation. And you always use, and then you like, oh, but she's this, but she's great. I'm like, describe the but she's great part. And he couldn't do it. But he was able to throw out like all kinds of manosphere, like red pilled jargon at me to make me convinced it was the case. But when I actually drilled down to it, he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. He had a horrible drugged out bitch, but it was the only chick giving him his attention. And so if he wrapped a bunch of fresh and fit terminology around it, it made him feel like he was good. And that's when this was like really early on in the fresh and fit stuff. They weren't even 500,000 subscribers at that point. And they still had their monetization. But, and that's when I realized, it's like, yeah, these guys aren't helping anybody. All they're doing is giving guys excuses. They don't know they're doing it. They think they're helping. I think they need to believe they're helping, because otherwise they're like, I'm just Jerry Springer. And nobody likes to know, hey, my job is to be a fucking clown. So like, no, we're helping men. Like, really? Yeah, I got 3 tweets about it last week. Like, everybody gets those tweets. I watched a guy who does like sawmilling or something, like machining, something like that, with like a, hey, you saved my life couch. And they're like, what the hell? Turns out guys just say that shit. It would be funny to see Couch on Fresh and Fit with the girls. I will tell you right now, it's been tried, and I flat out rejected. And I made it very clear my intentions on that thing. Having said that, if they paid flight and airfare, I'd say 10 grand. 10 grand for an appearance. Actually, you know what? 5 grand. 5 grand plus airfare, hotel, and that stuff. I would do a Fresh and Fit. They're probably pretty cheap, but they don't get paid anymore. They're not monetized, so it's like, ugh, can't afford that. Ryan having girls on his show, the name is Casting Couch. Why would, I mean, honestly, I try not to run this thing like a business. For me, it's just, I like people that are interesting. Anyways, we're still getting on the residual thing here. Yeah, so there's 6 months insufferable, main event, 2-year monkey syndrome. Actually, let's get into it. Let's make fun of somebody. What the hell is that? What is CYT? Can you? Oh, yeah. I know that one. That one's a good one.
Brother, who do you think is the funniest member of Rule Zero Squad? Now? What's your favorite comment joke of theirs? I think Ryan brings good laughs. He does. Ryan is like British humor. It's like Monty Python. People are like, if you get it, you laugh your ass off. If you don't get it, you're like...
Spot Ryan Stone.
People just don't get his humor. Who's the funniest one on there? You mean besides John Fitch? I think John Fitch is the funniest member of Rule Zero, but he's unintentionally funny. One of the robot dogs.
Seeing these robot dogs in real life was pretty surreal and terrifying.
And Cappy's pretty funny. He can be pretty funny too. Who's the funniest member?
Yeah, man, for 6 months, you turn into an asshole. I don't know why it's 6 months. It might, sometimes it's like 3, sometimes it's 8. It's 6 months is the general. It floats around there. Which makes sense too. Like, why wouldn't you be like that? Imagine that. You come in, you're in a situation, dead bedroom. It's like strippers saying in here, my wife's great. She cooks, cleans, cares for the kids, but she does never have sex with me. It's like, yeah, you have a great mother for your children, but you have a shitty wife. And then you find out why it's happening. You find out how you're contributing to it. You shed the idea of who's to blame, who's at fault, and then you find out wife is just like, women are just reactive. They're just reactive. You act more attractive, they respond to it. You start working out, getting more fit, they start working out, getting more fit, that sort of thing, right? And so it's like, okay, there's problems, but I have a solution. And my solution works. I accomplish things. And that's male self-esteem. Male self-esteem. This whole believe in yourself, just be yourself shit, that is women's self-esteem. And the blank slate equalism, as much as everybody hates talking about it and everybody hates it, nobody thinks it's real, everybody acts as if it does, and they don't even know they're doing it. That's the worst part. They don't know they're doing it. You know? Like, women, there's an intrinsic value. If you want to really get into the nuts and bolts, the Evo psych of it, women make it to babies. They take on all the risk, the 9 months of pregnancy, all that sort of stuff, right? And so because of that, they have the bottleneck. Now, as you know, they've evolved then for certain behaviors that do that. The innate or relationships or commitment skepticism bias. That's not David Clare. That's David Buss. Yeah, Dr. Buss talks about that and why women have sex. And that's because women suffer no consequences for assuming false negatives. You know, oh, he's not going to commit, so I'm going to be a bitch about it. Like that bratty behavior, there's actually an evolved reason for it. It's because if they act this way and they turn off a potentially good guy, no risk, no harm. But if they act nice and sweet and they attract a guy who's really shitty to them and, you know, bounces, there's a good chance they could die, at least the cave women. And so women are kind of evolved to be brattier and less trusting of male commitment. And they tend to trust expensive signals. That's why diamond rings are a thing. Diamond ring. You're going to shell out $10,000 on a rock with no resale value, no intrinsic worth, one of the most common stones on the planet. Really? And it's like, yeah, that's the point. It's not the ring. It's that you're willing to waste $10,000 on a nothing trinket that she gets to show off to her friends. That's the commitment. Oh, dear God, Dev. Dark Knight Dev with one heartfelt $5 super chat. Okay, this one's going to be spicy. Warning you now. Colorful hair, tattoos, long nails, and plenty of curves. A mud shark who's a mid. Red flags or green lights, gentlemen. Jesus Christ. Man, I like, thank God, Dark Knight Dev, that you're dark. Because, like, I don't know. That was the thing that turned me off of the Roycey stuff once he started talking incessantly about mud sharking. Which, you know, obviously for me, I'm like, not a fan of that. I mean, that's fine. It's just the whole denigrating it. I'm just like, if you're worried about it, then you should be able to attract these type of men. Don't be mad that other people are taking your dinner, you know? But Jesus. Yeah, colorful hair, long nails, plenty of curves. Most married guys with kids will identify more with being a dad than being a husband. Oh, don't get me wrong, Andrew Tate. You're absolutely right. This is the part where I talk about guys they're making their own hell. They're making their own misery. And this is the one. And yeah, there's always a way to offshore the blame of it, right? Well, the reason guys are acting like that is because they're gaslit as children to be a good Christian boy and be a father and blah, blah, blah. Their dads are really shitty to them, so they decide they're not going to be a good father. Absolutely right. All that stuff, none of it's wrong. But at the same time, it's also a choice. And if it's a choice, you can choose something else. Is that true? Then you start getting into the nature of free will. If you start arguing that, I'm like, I'm not going to get into that argument. I'm going to assume there's free will because I have to. Even if I didn't have free will, I would still assume there's free will. Null, $20 super chat, or €20 super chat. Sorry. Donka. It's not that fresh and fit can't afford you. It's that they do not to be confronted with practical information. This is their problem. Here are the solution. Yeah, well, I mean, I think his specific words were, what the hell? Somebody explained it to me once too. He's missing something, or he's not funny enough, something like that. Like he wasn't funny or he's not entertaining enough. I don't remember what that is. Like as soon as I heard that, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm definitely entertaining enough. I'll tear your mouth off. What are green lights and red lights for blind men? Girls with really nice skin. Dev. Nice skin. Oh, this one's a hottie. Look at that. Soft, supple. Great. Yeah. Oh, yeah, so like a lot of this stuff, and that's what you realize. Like, it's not that my wife's a bitch. It's that I have completely desexualized her. And there's so many little things you got to learn about that. There's like the Madonna whore complex is probably the most common one, where you think of women as either whores or, you know, virginal Madonnas. And the virginal Madonnas, you abstain from sex from, you think sex is yucky, you don't want to ruin their pure natured soul and shit like that. And the whore of Babylon, you're like, yeah, crap in her mouth or whatever the hell you say. And sometimes when you meet a girl at the first time, you meet her at the bar and she's that girl. She's the whore of Babylon. You're like, oh, I love it, spanking and whatever. And then you get married and then you have kids and now you have to lump her into that. It's like, no, kids. And you start calling her mom. Like nothing is worse for a marriage than when a husband and wife or a boyfriend and girlfriend start calling each other mom and pa. My grandparents did that. It was very sweet. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong, but you just know it doesn't really work. And how shrill her voice is. And so you realize guys do 100 little things that die into the Madonna whore complex, right? Like some girl you see some slutty chick on TV. Do you think she's pretty? And the guy will say, no, that chick's a whore. Not like you. You're great. She's horrible. And they think, there, I'm making my wife feel better by telling her she's better than that bitch. It's like, no, that's not what you're doing. What you're doing is telling her that woman is openly sexual and that is wrong and that is bad and that is evil. And your wife or your girlfriend or your baby mama or whatever, she loves you. And so when girls love you, they mirror you. Remember that before where, you know, if Rolo's a fan of the San Francisco 49ers, then his wife's going to be a fan of the San Francisco 49ers. It's a mirroring thing. It's how women, and because women always have that little bit of baseline, borderline personality syndrome in them, same as we have like narcissistic personality syndrome, but just not pathological. They tend to like what the man that they're into likes, and that's just That's because when women do that, they tend to, have men over the long term. And so when you start acting like this, girls that like sex are yucky and pooey and yuck. Girls that don't like sex are great. Your wife takes that signal. What do you think is the message coming out the other end of that? Not tonight, honey. I have a headache. Oh, we don't do that. Oh, I don't put my mouth there. That's where you pee out of that thing. Like all that shit. Brunettes, blondes, or redheads. You know the funny thing, Dev? I never had that kind of preference. I never really did. Brunette, blonde, redhead didn't really matter to me. I did notice that you know how a lot of guys have like they love Asian. Like I was like, not really. Other guys really love Latinas. I mean, Latinos are okay, I guess. And then, darker women. It was like too many of my family was dark, and so it kind of turned me off. So I was like, and it was never been my thing. But yeah, that I just didn't really care. What I'm really into is when I get a girl that other guys want. Like I remember one girl I was dating, and I was kind of like, I could take her or leave her. And then one of my buddies like, well, hey, if you don't want her, I'll take her. And then all of a sudden I wanted her. Like, oh, no, this one's mine. That's funny. Yeah, and so you realize, oh my God, there's a reason it's happening, and I'm doing it. And I see it every week. And this is probably like the only reason I'm still here. I know I talk about how I'm leaving every day. Every day I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm playing Minecraft. Fuck this place. I get it. And thank you guys for letting me vent. But like, Jesus. Then every time I come in, it's another guy's like, hey, like even just last week, one guy's like, hey, you remember last week that thing? Or it was like 2 weeks ago. I remember this. And I'm like, of course I remember this. Like I remember everybody's field reports, or most everybody's. And he goes, yeah, and you saw this and you assumed like this was going to happen and this was the thing behind it. And here's some field reports. I'm like, yeah, of course I remember that. He goes, yeah, all of that was right. I'm like, of course it's right. It's not that I'm smart. It's just that you're the 500th guy that I've seen do it. And so it's a safe bet that you're 501 and not some weird tangential fork of the situation. So seeing that stuff kind of keeps you around. And then you realize, yeah, for this stuff here, after you've seen it, and these guys, they're reading field reports too. It's not just like I'm reading it and spoon feeding it to them. A lot of these guys are doing their own research. A lot of these guys are just sticking around and watching as I talk with these guys. So they're seeing it for themselves, and they see, and they're able to sometimes go, okay, this sounds an awful lot like this guy or this guy. And I'll go back and look through his field reports and see what he did and see what happened. Same stuff that's happening to me. You start to think you have a fucking superpower. It's like, oh my God, I can see the matrix for the code now. I can see blonde, brunette, redhead. Wow. I don't even see the code anymore. You feel like you've actually, for some guys, and this is the crazy thing. This is how sad we've come as a society. This is how sad we've come. Where for the first time in their lives, they feel like they're living life and not having life happen to them. It's agency. Simon Sinek used to talk about that too when he talked about millennials entering the workforce and all the issues that would come up. For him, the big one was like, yeah, people don't care about what you think they care about when it comes to the job. It's not like money is good to a certain point. He's the guy that kind of came up with that $70,000 is where happiness peaks thing. Whether it's true or not, it's irrelevant. It's a good illustrative example, but the point of it was, there was like a whole thing. I should be able to remember this, but it's been a while. But autonomy. I want to do something that I'm in charge of, that I can accomplish and then solve, and then it's good. Most jobs don't have that. They just do what you're told, sit down. There's always endless meetings. Nothing ever gets accomplished from it. And that's why you hate your job. It's not because it's hard work. A farmer has hard work, but a farmer can come home at the end of the day, see his crops and know like, I did that. And he has something to show for it. And that's what makes it more enjoyable or satisfying. I guess satisfying might be a better word. You're 5'9", but love tall chicks. Tall chicks are great to a point. Like I said, I've fuck files. I tell you the story about the 6'4" girl. Never again. Never again. Sam Whiskey, $9.99 super chat. True love is doing it on the kitchen island while Junior's action figure is eyeballing you. Damn it, Snake Eyes. I'm not in the mood right now. Yeah, it's not tall chicks, it's long legs, which is true. When they looked this stuff up, like tall people versus short people, our torsos are almost all the same size. It's always the difference in legs. Something more you know. Back to the point. So for once in a guy's life, it's almost like he's getting the ability, like, I can see into the future. I can see consequences before they happen. I've gotten experience on this thing. I've got the confidence to go through accomplishing things. And that's how male, like, and that's what ties back to what I was talking about male self-esteem and female self-esteem, right? Female self-esteem, intrinsic worth, like I was saying before. So what they need to do is they need to feel good about their intrinsic worth. You know, feel good about yourself. Just be yourself. Works great for chicks. Guys don't have that. Guys, like internally, our wiring is just not geared to have that as a dopamine pathway. For us, what we have to do is go outside of our comfort zone and accomplish something. And then once we achieve that thing, the feedback loop is where we get the dopamine, and that's where the confidence comes from. So our self-confidence comes from accomplishing things outside of our comfort zone repeatedly. And that's one of those things that's what causes this 6 months of insufferable assholeness. You did something. Oh, it worked. Did something else. Hey, fuck the wife. Did something else. Oh, fuck your sister. Did something else. Hey, and the kids went to school on time. This is great. Fuck you guys. I'm an alpha male now. You know? Oh, Nick in the chat. I like a mild limp and a lazy eye. Well, I mean, did you cause the lazy eye? Because if I'm not mistaken, if you got bad aim, zinc is like a horrible toxin to the ocular cavity. I like how this has become like the meta conversation now is about what you like in a woman's legs, which is a good argument. It's a good argument to have. Yeah, 6 months being insufferable, and that's kind of what happens. And again, it's a novelty thing, right? You've had agency for the first time in your life for some guys. For other guys, it's just like they used to have it and they lost it and they're kind of getting it back. All that kind of shit. Like a divorce. Oh, dude. That death of 1,000 concessions Carl used to talk about, it's absolutely true. A guy just, I love my wife and she's good to me. Of course I'm going to be good to her. And then you'll do this and you buckle and you buckle and you buckle. And it's like 1,000 tiny little things that you do for the good of the family because your family is good to you. And that's technically how brainwashing and gaslighting and all that stuff works too. It's intermittent rewards. This is how bipolar chicks catch you. Because at first, oh man, I got with her and she was amazing and the sex was great and she was always on time, like all that stuff. And then slowly but surely they start pulling away the rewards and making them rarer and rarer. But because you're so used to them, you end up working hard. And then the more they pull away, you'd think, oh, that means then the more they pull away, the less I'm interested. No, the more they pull away, the more you invest. Until it's at the point where it's like, it used to be every time she'd come over, you guys would have crazy sex and you have a great time and blah, blah, blah. It's at the point now where it's like once out of every 10 times or something like that. And you're working 10 times as hard to get there, which ends up being off-putting. So it's like a negative feedback loop. And that's how good guys end up in really shitty situations. Not that they're not good guys. It's not that they don't know what they're doing. It's just that it happens so slowly and so subtly. And all of these very reasonable concessions you make that you end up in a position now where you're like, your wife's an absolute bitch and you just had no idea until somebody who haven't seen you in 10 years is like, dude, what the fuck happened to you? You're like, what? Look in the mirror and you look and your eyes fucking down here and you're like, Jesus, what happened to me? Nick's the lion taking down the antelope with the bad leg. Jesus. Yeah, so when you start solving that stuff, you're going to get cocky. 6 months. Anyway, going to move on. You know what? I haven't used this one in a long time. Let's go here.
We know that these videos really prey on vulnerable young men who have not had many experiences in dating.
That one's so short. We could do another one. I know I need to live for me, but somebody needs to tell me how to do that. Yeah, the main event. That's usually what kicks off that 6 months of insufferable assholeness is the main event. It was... So when I first joined, the main event was there. It was like one of the few things that actually got discussed fairly frequently. They find the sphere, at least the old sphere, always went in cycles. So the main event was the big thing, and everything that everybody did was phrased within the concept of the main event. And a couple years later, everything was about frame this and frame that and frame this. And everything was conceptualized within the concept of frame. And then after that, it was dread. Everything was about dread. What is dread? What is dread? What is dread? It was just kind of funny. We were like 6-year-olds with a soccer ball, As soon as somebody kicks the ball, then everybody mobs the ball. until somebody kicks it over the other direction. Which, and I guess it's almost like data mining. So I can't be mad about it. But yeah, in the main event, never really got as solid. But I mean, it's a rather small thing too, because it's just what some guys were noticing is that at the end of their round of dread, what would happen is the power dynamic would flip. It used to be, the wife's in charge. She wears the pants. Happy wife, happy life. But she's not happy, and you're not happy. But she gives you double blinds and all these other psychological tricks that women innately know, and we innately know how to fuck up. So everybody's miserable, and she always wins. And then there's a point where you stop letting her win, and you start maybe pulling out some wins for yourself, and it goes on for a while because people are stubborn. Men are stubborn, women are stubborn. Everybody still assumes it's the status quo, even though the status quo isn't anymore. You're a guy, you're standing up for yourself. She's a wife, she's no longer in charge, but she keeps acting as if she is until there's something that happens that actively prevents you from living that lie anymore. It's almost like the zeroing out for man is what gets you into the red pill, and the zeroing out for women is the main event. Almost. So it's not really a trauma thing, it's a more positive version. A main event is ultimately, and you kind of have to know some other concepts. So for example, in my essay, in the thing I stole from Venkatesh Rao about the 2-axis status and harmony chart, higher status, lower status, more harmony, we're on the same team, less harmony, we're against each other, right? It's a very simplistic but easy way to conceptualize like dynamics between people, the subtext. And after a while, as the guy, you're starting to learn how to become more higher status in how you communicate, how you address people, like how you frame things, right? Higher status. And then you have your playing your nice card and playing your not nice card, which is more harmonious and less harmonious. So what happens eventually is with these it's like a power game. Your wife's top, higher status, more there. You're up there, higher status. It's almost like a bit of a battle, but it's more subtle, and you're not treating it as a battle, which is actually one of the best effective techniques, is where you're not trying to compete with somebody and you're still winning. Now, I don't want you guys to think about this when you're going through your map. It's more so just a description of how it happens. So don't think of this like you're fighting your wife in some subtext battle for the, don't. That just makes it cringe. But they'll reach a point where the girl's sees you actively moving on. And the hamster gets running. Hamster runs in that wheel. That's how women spiral. It's a hamster. And then they start having a freak out moment. And this is where all of a sudden the disrespect, the condescending behavior, all that stuff turns into a comfort test. And the main event is the mother of all comfort tests. A lot of guys love to think they have it because, it's as a guy, you want to see it. I want to have that 6 months of insufferable assholeness. And you'd see it all the time. I think this was a main event. I think this was a main event. Is this a main event? Is my main event coming? If you have to ask, the answer is no. No. A main event will sneak up on you. You never see it coming because it doesn't come until you've actually checked out. You've checked out. Maybe other girls are taking an interest in you, and maybe for once you're starting to take an interest in them. And the wife didn't care anyway. She's like, nobody wants him. Fuck that guy. You go talk to those girls. And then you go talk to those girls. She's like, wait a minute, what? And then for some women, they'll have this epiphany moment where oh fuck, he's a good man and I'm about to lose him. What am I gonna do now? And they flip the fuck out. They flip the fuck out because women have no game. No game. They don't know what they're doing. Here in the chat, you guys think about this. Have you ever been hit on by a woman? And then think to yourself, if a guy had done that to a girl, would he be arrested? I've been hit on before. Most guys have been hit on before at some point, and every guy who has will tell you the most awkward, socially stunted, and stupid method. It's such a bad, awkward hitting on you moment that it was at the point where it takes you a minute to realize that's what they're doing. What the fuck? Yeah. I still remember this one story. I always love telling this one. It's not a bad story. It's just a whatever story. I remember I was in college and doing whatever. I had just entered a amateur stripping competition in my university, which whatever. I came in second place to this fat guy. This was frat boy shit. But after this, one of the nerdy girls that kind of hung around our social group, huge crush on me. And at one point she courted me somewhere and started just babbling. Just babble. And it just all came out and I was like, what in the fuck is she talking about? It wasn't even English. It wasn't English or French. And so I just kissed her to shut her up. I was like, I don't know what the hell to do. And she treated it like I was a great moment. She was loving life. And I was like, what in the hell? And I'm like, oh, that's how she hit on me. I'm like, holy fuck. That's so bad. I wish I could just babble, walk into somebody, corner them against a wall, and just start rambling. Are you still part of the One Behind Club if they do it wrong? Everybody's part of the One Behind Club. Everybody is. The idea is you don't want to be a senior member. That's the whole point of that. You're always going to have ones you're like, dude, I gave up so much back in the day for being an idiot. And then ideally you just want to be able to, back in the day, it needs to be as recent as possible. Or like, as far back as possible. You don't want to have the One Behind Club being, oh, I'm pulling numbers. Yeah, girl games, a lost art. There's some that still have it there, and there is some. Here's the thing, too, though. Like, all these girls that bitch about where all the good men and shit like that, a lot of it is just, it's the way, like, there's a musical chairs situation going, right? So when you're young, the really good girl game girls get locked down. They do, because they're good at it. If you're good at getting a man locked down, you lock a man down. And so as you get older, the best men get taken right off the market. Because, yeah, the younger girls are like, I know what a good man is, and I want a good one. I'm using my good girl game to get him. And so the longer the game goes on, the more difficult it is to find quality men. Now, girls, they actually have a second kick at the can. Those really good guys who get divorced, there's a new crop of them. It's like, remember that joke? Every year I get older, and every year 18-year-olds stay the same age. It's kind of like that for girls. Like every year I get older, and every year divorced guys come back on the market. Yeah. Exactly, Nick. Just don't be a gold medalist in the One Behind Club. Exactly. This has nothing to do with the main event anyway, but whatever. Whatever, we're here now. So let's stay here now. Yeah, and it just gets that way. And that's where a lot of guys have that one advantage too. It's that a lot of younger women like older men. So as an older guy, if you got your shit together and you're not a retard, you can start dating younger and younger. Like everybody knows my girl, she's like 8 years my junior. And most guys are like 10 years is great. Oh, 20 years. Well, not most guys, but enough guys are like that where you're like, oh, I feel like the junior member of the Cradle Robber Club. I mean, you only get to enjoy the anger from 40-year-old women for so long because everybody gets older. Like when my girl was 19 and I was 27, 28, I was like, what are you doing with that? And I'm like, all right, whatever. But now, like, if I hit 40 and she hits 30, everybody's like, whatever. She's under 35, you sick fuck. Yeah. But everything from awkward conversation to her just saying you're hot to straight up groping. Yeah, the groping one. I've heard a lot of guys, because I have a lot of friends that were like doing special forces, heavy into weightlifting and that, and shredded. Absolutely. Got groped constantly. And the funniest is one of the guys was a super nice guy, so he actually got like offended by it. It's like, stop, I'm not a piece of meat. The other guys were French. They were like, yeah, let's go. Picking up all kinds of girls. It's just kind of funny. It's one of those things. Anyways, so for guys, and this is what I was saying before with the younger women, you realize this, let's say you're 35 to 45. That's most of the guys tend to be in that range, 35 to 45 for the red pill. There's a couple older, a couple younger, most are right there. And there's one concept, like the sober second opinion. Is the issue that your wife won't fuck you, or is it the issue that no women will fuck you? Like, well, how do you know? Well, go test the waters, go see. Go start talking to stranger women and see how they act. If they don't know any of your past, any of your bullshit, what is their impression of you by how you act right now? Snapshot of your current value. And what most guys find is being older, more established, more mature, like all that stuff, less bombastic, all that stuff makes you more attractive. So just by being the same guy they were at 20, at 35 to 45, more attractive. You're like, oh, that's right. 2, younger women like older men a hell of a lot more than they think. There's 3 types of women. Uncle Vaz used to talk about this, one of the more prolific red pill guys. He was an older guy, lawyer out of New York, loved younger women, that sort of thing. He goes, there is women who hate older men and refuse to date them. There are women who are open to dating older men. But, I don't want any social stigma. I don't want my friends giving me shit over it and that kind of thing. And then there's women that love older men. And he goes, your job as a man is to filter for those two categories, but mostly the last category, the girls that are right into it. And that's what older man game is. Filter for the kind of girls that are that's everybody's game. Filter for the kind of girls that are into you. Like I said, I kind of figured out early on that my gimmick was I'm tanned, I'm colored, I'm foreign, whatever. But I'm also very, very local. Like I got a Canadian accent, I'm Canadian. So I'm just dark enough where you can kind of dip your toe in the water of trying something exotic without being too, like, it won't piss off dad, but it'll make dad ask, like, who is this guy? Yeah. So I'm like, all right, that was my gimmick. I get it. And it was fine. It worked out well. And I have noticed that girls that liked me, like most girls that dated me never really dated white guys, or they just finished dating a white guy. Just one of those things. I don't know. But, where are we going with this one here? Oh yeah, main event stuff. Yeah, and the one thing a lot of guys find out is not only is sex easy, it's easier than it's ever been. That's why I always laugh at these 20-year-old alpha male, like, oh, if you don't have the latest iPhone, she ain't giving you the time of day. It's like, bro, I got middle-aged dudes who just started dating after a 20-year hiatus. They're like, man, I have to club these bitches off of me. And it's like, well, those aren't the whatever. Who cares? He's happy. It's up to his standard. That's good enough. What kind of posturing shit is this? Well, if you're not dating supermodels, you're just wasting your life. It's like, okay. You know who says that? People who don't date supermodels. As soon as it's no longer a slump buster, it's all the same category. Whammon. You tell her you don't text, only smoke signals. Yeah, but a lot of guys find that out. It's like, oh, dude, sex is a lot easier. It's cheaper. Like, I don't have to put in any effort. I just have to be somewhat entertaining. Don't make her hate her life. And a lot of the times, like, I hate my dad. Do you mind helping me out with that? And you're like, yeah, sure. And that's as far as you have to go. And then they kind of hit that epiphany. And then a lot of it, too, is like start doing things around the house. Like, it's not chore play. It's do things to your standard and to your timeline. The idea is you want to set expectations for yourself. That's part of building frame is you know the kind of life you want to live and you live according to that desire. It's not, well, the wife is supposed to do this and the wife is like, no, you do it. If you like the dishes done every night before bed, do the dishes every night before bed. If you like having a clean house with no laundry, then clean the house and do the laundry. If you don't care about this stuff and you like it done every 2 weeks, then do it every 2 weeks. Unapologetic. To your standard, to your timeline. And then what a lot of guys do between that and the girl thing, they start noticing is like I'm a catch. I got my shit together. My house is clean. They're cleaning the dishes. They're making the kids lunch for the next day. There was that girl this afternoon that was like, tried to give him her number and he's like, I can't, lady, sorry. And then you look over at your wife and she's gaining weight. She's sitting on the sofa watching, I don't know, whatever's replacing Oprah, Dr. Phil or YouTube or TikTok or whatever. And just getting fatter in front of you. You're like, what the fuck good is she? And then guys have to, and it's sometimes it's a lot of work to get there. But eventually a guy gets there where he looks, and I can tell you it. And this is why I don't mind, telling you like, oh, spoiler alert. I don't mind. Because I can tell you this and you can listen, but you're not hearing me. Like you don't hear it until you're there. Every guy I've ever talked to who got there, it's like, I know you said that, but until it actually happens, I don't understand what you're saying. And then they understand it. Like, I get it. You look over and it's not anger. It's not disdain. It's not pity. It's more of a call to action, like, the fuck am I doing here? Look at this. This is a waste of my time. It's almost like talking about your wife the same way you would talk about doing the dishes. Like, dude, these dishes are filthy. I got to do the dishes. This is ridiculous. And so you do the dishes. Or, my wife is just fucking useless. She doesn't put out. I got girls lining up to want to put out. I'm doing all the cleaning. What does she do? What does she do other than, she gave birth to kids? But I don't need her around for that. Her job's done. And when a guy gets there, this is the kind of behavior that kicks off a main event, is that it's not that, well, it's the subtlety of it. Once you have that as your framework, like your frame, the way you act, every little interaction has that subtle subtext behind it of, I'm higher status than you, and I'm neutral. Like, I'm not on your team. I'm not against your team. You're just, like, it's up to you to define where you are on there. And girls don't, like, it's a subconscious thing, but human beings pick up on these little social signals. And this whole time you're picking up, and she's seeing a guy who's just like, dude, this guy's better than me, and he does not care if I live or die. And he basically puts me on the same footing as these chicks we found at Starbucks. And when you try to bring it up and ask about it, he's like, he doesn't really care. He's ambivalent, which is absolutely what we're supposed to do. Agree and amplify. Who was that chick at Starbucks? Oh, that's the hooker I sleep three times a week with. And you're like, what? His way of saying, I don't care. I don't care about any of this stuff. I think you're being silly, so he'll agree and amplify. Amused mastery. I think that girl was into you at Starbucks. Probably. It's amused mastery or fogging. Is that what you think? Negative inquiry? Why would that even bother you? What do you care? There's all kinds of ways to answer it, but the whole point is, it's like, I don't give a shit. The only thing that matters is how I'm treated by the people around me and the value that I give them in return. That's it. Null, 20-euro super chat. In the internet world, having the guts to talk to a girl in the street is a superpower. You're not wrong. You're not wrong, good sir. I am amazed. Actually, I'm not amazed, but it's a good segue statement. I'm amazed when guys learn for the first time that girls are just bored. They're so bored. Their husbands bore them. Their boyfriends bore them. All the girls they date bore them. All the guys they date bore them. To a guy just walking up, having a conversation, and the little bit of anxiety about that, but it's also kind of fun because the guy is social. Dude, it's the greatest thing ever. Girls are fingering TikTok forever. I wish my man would pay attention to me and I wouldn't have to finger this fucking phone to hear this bitch yell about her date last night. That'd be wonderful. Although we'll see. Didn't your boy Biden ban TikTok unless they sell it to the Americans? So now that TikTok's banned, is it going to be like that Simpsons episode where they canceled Itchy and Scratchy and then all the kids start going outside and playing with skipping ropes and that? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. All right. I'm going to make fun of somebody. Who are we going to work with here? I should just do a book first. We got to sell books. There is no ultimate good to defer to. You have to know what you want so that you can ask yourself the right questions.
Name a bigger red flag than a white guy with a podcast. I'll wait.
I am not impressed. I will have you know, I'm like 80% white. The podcast is goddamn good, and I don't want you anyway. You got random Iroquois art and not art on your walls. You're not my type, sir. Or madam. I don't know, you're allowed to say any more? It's the weirdest thing. Every now and then I look over, I'm like, man, I kind of miss having longer hair. But then I kind of remember, I'm like, no, I don't think I did. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe we'll have another pandemic and I'll have a chance to grow it out for another 2 years. Yeah, I saw Dune. I enjoyed it. The changes they made, it makes sense for the movie. It's like, I always laugh when people get mad at the Dune thing. It's like, bro, you're mad that they changed from the reading material? Have you watched any of the other Dune adaptations ever? Every single one had major changes. Remember the weirding guns? The guns that kill with the sound of your voice? And how Paul's big thing is that he didn't need the weirding module anymore? That wasn't in the books. Dark Knight Dev, $5 1 cent super chat. My gimmick was Black Ryan Reynolds. Appealed to the mega Beckies who loved their brothers but didn't like the ghetto shit that came along with it. Dude, that works. Plus, as if you want to be a black conservative guy, dude, there is so many political conservative channels that would love to like hire you as their black friend. All you got to do is talk about how much you love guns and you're in. You love guns and you hate crack and they're like, dude, Candace Owens just left a giant opening at Daily Wire. Sign up. Sign up. Look at that. Nuke and Jack together at last. I feel like it's the early millennial power hour. Yeah, I find myself, I don't know, are we allowed to say anymore? A lot. Yeah, that's kind of my joke. I always like that. You know, that the point of that humor is because for a lot of people, they are worried about like social stigmas and taboos and stuff like that. And for a lot of things, they've changed so quickly that we're just like commonplace to say a few years ago is now completely taboo. And so I find when you throw out something like that, it creates like a tension and an awkwardness in your social group. And then you always like, I don't know, are you allowed to even say that anymore? Then you have that relatable moment. It's like, I know, right? I used to say this all the time. Now I'm not allowed to call people retards. You're like, yeah, I don't know. Plus is the fact that, you know, you don't say this shit at work. don't. At work, they're looking for an excuse to get rid of you. Especially now, Canada's going to hit a massive recession. Dude, we're so fucked. We leaned in after the 2008 housing crisis, where Canada basically avoided it. We leaned in, but our economy was stagnant, and so we leaned in so hard on real estate to prop up our economy that we're fucked. Like we are 2006 America right now. It's insane. And every Canadian economist that's talking right now, they've all said the same thing. It's like, if you can survive the next 5 to 10 years in Canada, you will be great. Because then we'll have like a major downturn, thing will go bad, everybody loses their job, shit like that. But if you survive that and manage to keep your hand on like, some investments and that sort of thing, it's like that. The 10 years after that's going to be great. So we'll see. You were canned 3 years ago, Alex. You haven't worked in 3 years, or you just switched over? You did what I did. After you got the layoffs, you're like, yeah, I'm going to try working for myself and see what happens. And then bam. Doesn't Canada have more foreign property owners than native? No, but we did. You know what? I'm going to call this bantz, because we are banting right now. So no, turns out the city of Vancouver actually did a foreign ownership study a couple years back. And they found it was, at the time, I want to say it was between 5 and 12% foreign owned property. To which they were saying, see, it has a negligible effect on the housing market. Forgetting to notice that, yeah, but that 5 to 10% was everybody buying in like the last 2 years. And that was what, because like most people don't sell their homes, especially if you live in Vancouver. You don't sell it, you leave it there. Old people are dying with it. My in-laws, one of their moms died, left them with like 4 Vancouver properties. It's, if you own property in a Canadian city, you tend to own 5 properties. It's just the way. And that's why there's this investor class that always votes for Trudeau, because whatever he does, it always props up the housing market, even though it's horrific everywhere else. Everybody always just looks at their housing costs and like, oh, at least I can retire off of that and leave this nonsense when the thing goes to hell. Commercial, well, I'll put it this way. TD Bank just opens its fourth skyscraper in my neighborhood. The banks own a lot of it. But we'll have to see. Yeah, boomers refuse to sell and downsize. Yeah. It's not just that, too. Like, we don't build because of the amazing, I guess, 30 to 40% of a Canadian housing cost is taxes. Taxes and fines and payments and that sort of thing. Government grift. Government graft. So people just, and that discourages people from building things. And so we've been taking in like 1 million immigrants a year for the last 10 years, but we only built like 80,000 houses a year or 80,000 residences a year. That's including condos and all that stuff. So yeah, we just weren't even if we just had local, like native population and our declining birth rates, we weren't even building enough to keep up with that. So we're in this weird situation right now, so this is going to sound racist. It's not, but it makes me laugh. It was, I was on YouTube, on like the unsigned in YouTube, and there was this Canadian channel, 1.2 million subscribers. I'm like, who the fuck are these people? It was a Muslim group. I don't remember what their names are. I'd have to go look it back up. And they had 5 reasons we're leaving Canada. And I was like, what? When the hell did they show up? And I clicked on it. It's the guy, the Muslim beard, the girl at the headscarf, and they're like your basic bitch family vlogger types, right? And he had like a Free Palestine hat, and she had the burqa, or not the burqa, the hijab. 5 reasons we're leaving Canada. 1, it's too fucking cold. 2, taxes. 3, religious. They weren't allowed to be religious or something. I think it was something to do with the Troons, but they didn't really say, because they're very, family friendly or whatever. And I'm like, I gotta check the comments on this one. I gotta check. And I thought, and it was like, it's the most Canadian comments you've ever seen. I think that, and they ended up moving to Malaysia, which is like a big Muslim country. Like, I think you guys should do what your heart tells you to write. In fact, I think all Muslims should follow the heart. Basically a really nice Canadian way of saying, yeah, you guys should all get out. I was like, holy shit. And then there was like this, and there was like, it put me into a rabbit hole where there's all these YouTube channels full of like Southeast Asian YouTubers talking about why they hate it in Canada. And it was always the same story. It's like, yeah, when I moved here in 2019, I had a house, I had a great job, and now that I'm in Canada, I can't afford a house, I can't do this. Immigration is causing all these problems. And I was like, The fact there's so many YouTube channels of guys who have moved here in the last 5 years talk about how immigration is the problem was like, I'm like, yeah, not interested in this content. So I'm like, this is going to make me one of those angry guys yelling at the TV. I'm just done. I found it hilarious though. Very funny. Yeah, in my city, a lot of immigrants are leaving Canada as it's way too expensive and housing is scarce. Yeah, and I see little signs of it everywhere too. My girl was on Facebook Marketplace, wanted to buy a mirror for $20, had to drive out to the suburbs. We found it was like insanely large houses, like not even McMansions, like big brick buildings. And out of curiosity, if we're ever in a new neighborhood, we always look and see if there's like one for sale in there. What are they worth? Like $3 to $5 million homes. And this guy's on Facebook Marketplace selling us a $20 mirror. And we're like, what the fuck? Turns out he was moving back to somewhere Slavic. We didn't ask. It's either Russia, Ukraine, something like that. We didn't ask why, but we're like, that's kind of strange. Like, if you have that big of a home, how do you need to sell a $20 mirror? Why do you even give a shit about that kind of money? Yeah, it's... How is he it there? Oh, and Nuke, let me know when your show's done. We'll raid you. So it's kind of crazy. And then you look at the demographics thing too, where Canada... So Canada's weird. East to West Coast, like our East Coast, you know, the whole baby boomers are dying off and our demographic is now like 10 old people for every one young person, for every one kid or something like that. There's a whole bunch of statistics on it. The idea is the more working people to the less non-working people is good. And when it skews the other way with an aging population, you get that Japanese-style deflation. The East Coast is totally like that. Top-heavy, older generations, no kids underneath to fill up the void. West Coast is actually closer to like more young people in that. There's tons of stories in Toronto too of, I'm in Toronto and I moved to Calgary and I hate the nightlife here, and I was just laughing. I'm like, well, Canada is weird. Like Toronto's 4.5, 6 million people, something like that. Oh no, 6 million now, yeah. 6 million people. And then they moved to Calgary, a city of like 1 million people, and they're like, I can't believe this place doesn't have the same nightlife as a city 6 times the size. It's like, yeah, it's weird. Our office brought in a guy from Nigeria. The first winter was comical. Oh, dude, the first summer is comical. Like, I love now when, like, you see it's like 14 degrees in the spring, and you're out there in like a shorts and a t-shirt, and you can tell when some guy's fresh off the boat because he's sitting there in a Canada Goose parka. You're like, how do you guys handle this? My hair's falling out. And you're like, what the fuck? Makes me laugh. Toronto is the only world-class city in Canada. It's not world-class, though. They actually do studies on, like, A-class cities, B-class cities, stuff like that. Like, the big ones are New York and London. If I'm not mistaken, Toronto is a C-class city, which puts it about equivalent to, like, Rome. It's where, like, it's big, but it's missing massive, like, the nightlife isn't as good, the culture life isn't as good, corruption still worse. Yeah, Toronto's C-class. But that's the Canadian spirit right now, right? And I'm noticing everybody's kind of saying it now. We're Canada. So from World War I and World War II, when we kind of separated from the British and became our own separate country, we've always been known as the plucky little upstart, punching above our weight. Like, our World War I troops were just insane. Like, 10 times better than anybody else, but we didn't have very many of us. So we were kind of known as like, yeah, one Canadian's worth as much as 5 Brits. And we kind of rode our coattails off of that for the next 100 years. And now we're at the point where we still think we're like that, but we're not. We don't have industry anymore. We don't have tech anymore. Because the government was so worried about America overtaking our industries, we would heavily subsidize specific companies. Like, we were picking winners in the economy. That's why Bombardier. Like, nobody likes Skidoo. I remember when Rollo was telling that story about his Skidoo or his snowmobile burning up, and he had to get off of that before he caught fire. And I'm like, oh man, get yourself a Skidoo. He's like, I would never buy a Skidoo. Those things are trash. And I'm like, oh, it's because it's Bombardier. Nobody likes Bombardier stuff. But because Canada subsidizes so heavily, they get to be talked about in the same way they talk about Boeing and that. So you're like, all right, fair enough. Same thing with telecoms. Our 5 telecoms are essentially a cartel. They've carved out their own niches in the region. Like, if you are on the East Coast, you have Rogers. If you're on the West Coast, you have Shaw. If you're in the prairie provinces, you probably have TELUS. There's a bit of overlap, but not much. And there was a whole bunch of companies that wanted to come in and improve our infrastructure, but then they would have to enter the market, and so they were just not allowed. I think we finally got to a point where some Dubai company was able to buy more than 10% of a Canadian telecom company and actually do it. But anyways, the point of all this stuff is our industries are horribly non-competitive because they don't have to compete because they're so heavily subsidized. Grocery stores, same thing. They have complete vertical integration with the distribution of food and that. So, and that's why everybody's getting mad right now because after COVID, because people's shopping habits changed. They didn't go out to dinner. They would eat at home. And so what used to be commercial grade food that they'd use for restaurants wasn't getting sold, but the stuff that's for home grade started getting sold a bunch. So there were shortages, so prices went up. But because they're a monopoly, they get to charge a little bit more than that because they don't have to be efficient, right? And everybody's like, oh, you got to tax these stores. It's like, well, it's more than that. Yeah, they shoot up heroin right in front of Madison Square Garden. Yeah, Bombardier famously botched the streetcars. You had one job. Yeah, Loblaws. Or if you're on the West Coast, you'll know the Jim Pattison group. That's like overweighty and I think Safeway too. So it's not that they're corrupt or evil or anti-capitalist like the NDP is talking about. Their problem is they just have no competition. And that's the one thing. And everybody's worried. As soon as you bring the states in here for competition, you're going to ruin it. And they're going to destroy all these Canadian companies. It's like, well, you kind of already did. So let them die. We try so hard to force feed our Canadian identity that we end up screwing ourselves in the long term. So we have to come, as a country, we have to come to terms with we ain't shit. That's okay. This has nothing to do with Red Pill, by the way. I hope this isn't like, oh, he's talking politics. Like, fuck. I hope that's not where we're going with this. So I still have to talk about the 2-year Dancing Monkey Improvement Program, but we might skip that because we're already at the 90-minute mark almost. Yeah, Chicago, world-class city despite the crime. Well, from what I hear, as long as you stay north of the river, you never see the crime. So, who knows? Yeah, any city in Canada with a population over 200,000? No, with a population over 30,000. Victoria, BC. I went back there for my buddy's retirement. I don't recognize that place anymore. That place used to be, it was almost like a Potemkin village. It was like little old school Victorian London in Canada. And you go there now, it was just like Fentanyl Alley. And I was like, what in the fuck happened? I go to the liquor store, I go to buy some beer, and the guys there are complaining about fentanyl junkies. And I was like, what happened to my quaint little town? Yeah, I come to this channel because it's not political. All right, anyways, yeah, we're not bitching about Canada. Get back on point here. Damn you guys. Damn you guys. Anyways, the point is, things are going to be on the up and up. Things are going to get worse, and then things are going to get better, which is kind of the similar as the Red Pill thing, whatever. Who do I make fun of? Oh, classics.
Boom, what's up, fam? Got some big news to share that unfortunately is not so good, so I'm gonna jump right into it. You're gonna watch this video and you're gonna cry. At least we can laugh at your eyes as you cry like in the corner like a little girl in the fetal position.
I wonder whatever happened to that goofy bastard. I saw him interviewing, was it Tate or Candace Owens on that one thing? I'm like, how the fuck did he get in on that shit? That fucking tard. I feel bad, man. His kid doesn't stand a chance. Got his OnlyFans mom and his crazy insane father and fuck trophies for clout plastered on there all the time. Oh man, kid doesn't stand a chance. Keep bitching about Canada, eh? I demand term limits on the Manosphere president. Yeah. Nah, we'll see. I'm done bitching about Canada for now. Honestly, it's for me personally, it's going well, but that's only because all the things that are wrong with Canada, I just work around them, which is kind of what you're supposed to do anyway. Because that's the alternative of what this part is supposed to be, the 2-year Dancing Monkey Self-Improvement Program. And that's where guys assume you're owed something. When you first get on Red Pill stuff, you're like, oh, you're not owed anything. You ain't shit, and that's okay. Everybody's like, yeah, I love it. Talk down to me, coach. It's kind of like a dominatrix thing. And they're like, yeah. And then they develop their own little covert contracts, which shows they really didn't understand what the hell you were saying. Well, that's fine. As long as I know I'm not shit and that's okay, and I do all these things that they're doing, I'll get the same results they're getting, and life will be good, and I won't have any problems. And you're like, that's a massive covert contract. And that's the problem, too, because you're doing a lot of the same things that guys who were succeeding are doing. You're going to get some success. But do you remember an hour ago where I was talking about seeing your wife just gaining weight, not helping out, not being useful, not fucking you, and you kind of have that like, what the fuck is she doing here? Like, what value does she bring to my life? And then how that changes the way your demeanor and the way you act and the way you frame all your interactions. And it tends to, like, you know, elicit a main event. Same thing here. When you start thinking of this dancing monkey improvement program, this covert contract that if I do all the red pill things, wife will love me, girl will blow me, everything will be great. It changes these subtleties in how you act, all these little subtextual tells. Instead of acting, like, again, back to the status and harmony chart, instead of acting higher status with ambivalent harmony depending on the value you get, you start acting more harmonious and a little bit of status. And the status part where you're like higher status, lower status, you're kind of almost neutral in there. Like, I'll do all the good things, but then you should just submit. So instead of you moving into a more confident, assertive position, you expect them to move into a more submissive position. That's the covert contract where you try to manipulate other people into doing what you want and feeling what you want. That's the two things that never work. Like, you cannot get people to feel the way you want them to feel. I mean, you can yell at them and they get angry, but you take that approach. You have to. You're like, I want my wife to feel more like this. That's your goal. You want your wife to feel something different? Well, you can't do that. Why not? Because that's not you. That's her. You can change how you feel about things. You can change what you do about them. You can't change her. This isn't the manipulate your wife into blowing you on Saturdays podcast. This is the manipulate yourself into stop acting like a fucking retard Saturday podcast with a little bit of Canada bitching in the middle. You know? And so then, yeah, all the little choices you make, all the little decisions you make, as soon as you leave the paint by numbers, red pilled mental models and strategies. Like, yeah, the working out, it's easy to work out and not fuck that up. You do the weights, 5x5. I did exactly what I was told. Did you learn about your nice guy behaviors? All right, I shed all the nice guy behaviors. I use agree and amplify, amuse mastery, fogging, negative inquiry, negative assertion, nuking a shit test. I know what shit tests are. I know what comfort tests are. I have my assertive Bill of Rights, all 10 of them down. I know the 7 laws of Rollo Tomasi. You follow everything to a T, and you get some success from it, which is great. But then there's going to be a point where you have to start improvising, where you start to have to take all these tools you've learned and apply them. And if you don't have that mental point of origin, again, it's that, and I know this is jargony, but I'm serious, that mental point of origin where you're not trying to win your wife's heart and make her act better, not trying to make her submissive as opposed to making yourself more dominant. That comes out in subtle little ways. And then what you'll notice is, like, again, 2 years from now, when you start to expect that I'm here, she's here, and our marriage is here. And then all of a sudden she kind of nukes that whole fantasy. That's when you have that little existential crisis, the 2 years singing, dancing, monkey improvement program. You're like, oh my God, I just realized this entire time I had a giant covert contract and I wasn't doing any of this shit right. And you don't know it for a while because the things work, because a lot of this stuff works in spite of how stupid you are. So, sucks for those guys, but luckily they caught it. I mean, 2 years is better than never. Start again. That's what happens. I demand. Did you see Trudeau propaganda? He's waving to a crowd during the eclipse and edited in crowd cheers and posted it. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, there's no way he wasn't getting cheered. Dude, there's like, damn it. All right, this one and then I'm done. There is TikTok montages. Every time Trudeau goes to anywhere with public access, everybody calls him a fucking asshole loudly, yelling at him. And there's like 15 TikToks being recorded at the time. I have never seen it. Like, he can't. That's almost, if I ever had to ask the Prime Minister a question, it'd be, hey, after the next election, where are your plans to retire to? London or US? Like, what? Like, because there's no way he's going to sit anywhere in Canada without anybody, like, people getting mad at him. I can picture him trying to go in a restaurant and servers being like, yeah, we don't serve your kind here. But anyways, whatever. Yeah, you'd almost say you're red pill, almost done. Got too much determinism. If I do A, then B must happen. The whole point is just to be able to do A. Yeah. It's something I've harped on. I harp on the guys in Patreon all the time. It's like, your goal is not to fuck your wife. Your goal is to be more fuckable. You're not trying to achieve a specific result. You're trying to build a skill set. And the idea is, with that skill set, you're able to make better decisions for yourself. Now, this is where a lot of like the critique of the red pill comes in and the stuff. I never find it to be genuine. It's always just an attack vector looking to happen. Well, you think you're going to follow Rollo Tomasi and then you're going to start fucking supermodels? It's not how it works. You're like, no, it's not how it works. incels love that one too, where they're like, look at this guy, he doesn't work out, and he gets all these chicks. It's like, yeah, but he's got perfect bone structure. He's a crackhead, and he's got money, and he's got status, and he's a singer in a band. Of course he's going to do better than you. Well, then why even bother? It's because right now, you're getting this. You're getting, I'm just arbitrary numbers here. You're getting 2. 2 what? Doesn't matter. That guy's getting 7, so why even try? Because now you're getting 2, but you put in your basic amount of work and get your shit together, you can start pulling 4, and then 5. I'm not even talking about the hot babe scale or anything. I'm talking about anything. Money. I only earn 30 grand a year. That guy's a millionaire. Why even bother working for a living? Well, if we go from 30 grand to 60 grand, I guarantee your life doubles in the very least, like the quality of food you get to buy, right? And I don't even want to say it's one of those maximize your life things. You know how a lot of guys think about it, where like masculinity is like a linear thing. You start at 0%, you can make it up to 100. Well, he's already at 100. I'm only at 30. Yeah, but you can get to 50. Not really how it works either. But it's a non-accurate way to illustrate the concept. So don't take it literally either, because in reality, there is no one path to carve out a good life. There's all kinds of things you can do. So it's more so like you have to define your own scale. And these are hard concepts, right? Like I can't go on a Fresh and Fit and do this in like a nice pithy talking point. Bro, you develop your own thing and then you do you're like, I'm losing you, man. Just kick her off the thing. So you go on there and you think, okay, so what is it I want to accomplish? Maybe you want to be an author. You write a book. Maybe I want to be a YouTuber. You make your videos. Maybe I want to start my own company in the shipping industry or something like, or I'm a programmer. I want to be able to develop my own thing. Well, that's not very masculine, is it? Oh, I guarantee you it is. Whatever you accomplished, it's not that you haven't done it yet. And then once you accomplish it, things get better. Well, if I make my own version of Stardew Valley as the game, do I get all the chicks? Like, no, but the kind of guy who can do that is the kind of guy who can go up to Starbucks, talk to a girl, pick her up, sleep with her, have her want to stick around with him and start a family, you know? It's all about the skill sets you want. And if you find out that skill set's not working for you anymore, dude, I've written a book, I'm done. I don't want to write any more books. Fine, move on to something else. What are you going to do now? Well, now I'm going to start like a Bush League wrestling thing. All right, fine, start that up. Try that out. Do it. And everything builds on it. Turns out, like, for example, when I started this stupid brand, it turns out my former degree in graphic design, very helpful in doing like the merch, the cover art for the books, the graphic design for the typography of the book layouts and all that stuff. It was a useless skill for me until then, but it was great back when I was a graphic designer in my like late teens, early 20s. Turns out being in the military, did some time teaching. Didn't really matter, but now I can sit in front of you guys and give you an hour-and-a-half long lecture once a week. Somewhat be coherent. Keep my shit together. Have ways of keeping the audience retention as best. Like all these skills, they kind of matter. And like, does teaching in the military, is that masculine? It's like, I don't fucking know. But it's a skill I have, and now it's a skill I can apply elsewhere. Corporate stuff too. Oh, dude, I can give you a governance document, and I can risk analysis. All this stuff about avoiding fucking up on YouTube. How do you think I learned that shit? All the security and risk analysis stuff I've been doing. But that's the point, right? Like all of these things you're going to build a skill. It's not some 0 to 100 masculinity. It's, I'm going to take this path and I'm going to get damn good at it. I no longer want to do this path. I'm going to do something else. Skills you built there. I think even Scott Adams, back before he went stupid, he used to talk about as a talent stack. And it's not wrong. It's absolutely right. As you get older, as you achieve things, you're going to have skills that help you peripherally. Take advantage of them. And it just so happens that all of these skills can tie back to being better with women or your woman or whatever. Yeah, pour out a White Claw for the fresh Yeetus fetus. And that's what gets me the most. That's what irritates me about when I watch like Pearl or Fresh and Fit or Tate. It's like, you guys have been given the greatest gift ever. An audience. You have like, what, 1 million people that watch you. And they love you. And they love you so much they're willing to yell at somebody online who doesn't love you. How do you not love these guys? They're the greatest. They're my kings. You know how hard it is to get a guy to be your cargo cult follower? It's fucking hard, man. Not one of you guys has ever tried to kill somebody or threaten somebody and dox them because they talk shit about me. I don't mind. I'm not asking you to. I don't want you to. But the point is, it's hard to get, and they have it. And all they have to do is learn from their mistakes and build on their previous successes, and they don't, and they refuse to. Tate, perfect example. got arrested for his stupid honeypot, cam whoring, human trafficking, money laundering thing. What's he do? When he's in jail, he calls his lawyer and asks him to bribe some officials. And they're like, hey, you know those are monitored calls, right? You're like, what? He gets charged with that. So what's he do then? 18 more accusations of trying to honeypot chicks. You're like, bro, you haven't learned from any of your mistakes. Like, whatever. And that's the same way I was talking about how the Patreon guys, like, they keep me here watching them, succeed and do things. It's awesome. It keeps me going. I'm like, I love it. And then I watch that side. I'm like, you know what? Fuck this place. I'm just going to do Minecraft full time. So more of a Warcraft 3 guy myself. Whatever floats your boat. But at the end of it, you got your singing, dancing, monkey improvement program, right? And that's all you can hope for at the end of this. Like you, me, everybody, is that one day, 8 years from now, some bozo who's got a moderate audience is going to say, hey, look at this field report. There's something great you can learn from it. They probably aren't here. But like if I ever reach out to the Lits, like, hey, just so you know, your field report made it in the book. People are loving it. Probably be pretty awesome. Think about that. Like contributions you'd never thought of. Litz was just talking about his life and fixing it the way he could. And then 8 years later, somebody wrote a book, used him as a great example of one of the outcomes of dread. A year after that, some poor bozo who saw like a Tate yelling at me over Tekken video picks up the book, reads through it. And he's like, holy fuck, this is my life. Learns something about himself from it, makes some achievements, accomplishes something out of your life. So somewhere out there, 4 degrees of separation from you is some guy who learned from you a decade before, and you have no idea. Like, that shit is awesome. Got men swapping notes, men helping men, male sexual strategy, positive male identity. The concept and the way it's kind of evolved over years is just insane. It's amazing. The only thing that gets me now is because it's become somewhat popular, is that nobody's willing to write field reports anymore. Not really. Like, you have to really wall it off and gatekeep it. Because back in the day, it was just like a subreddit of 50,000 people or 100,000 people. Nobody knew. Nobody gave a shit. It was semi-anonymous. People could be flat out honest about some of the most ridiculous things. Like, remember when I was talking about the whole, so you knocked up a plate, what do you do? And the one guy was on there flat out telling you how to, like, illegally handle the situation, which, horrific, but it was great in illustrating the point that anything goes. As long as you can male sexual strategy and positive male identity. You're never going to get that anymore. You're going to get some guy who wants clout, so he tells the audience what they want to hear. And the problem with that is the audience is full of fuckless guys. And so what do fuckless guys want to hear? They want to hear how fuckless guys can fuck. Because that makes them feel better. Oh, I don't have to do anything. The world just has to change. Sounds good to me. If you tell them you're a fuckless guy for fuckless reasons, and if you fuck like this, you can start fucking more. And they're like, I think you're misogynist, man. Not working for me. You will know endless tournament. Glad I caught this live for once. I'm glad you caught this live for once, sir. My analytics always appreciate seeing more people come in. Anyways, so that's it for this one. We're going to go to Nuke's channel. I got to stall for a little bit, though, because he said he's just finishing his, whatchamacallit. Let's see if he's done. Oh, yeah, there it is. The ick list. I'm going to try and make it. Like, I won't be there early. I gotta run, like, right after this. But if I make it back in time, I'll pop in. But otherwise, go check it out. Nuke and the boys, running shit. It's awesome to see. I'm actually looking forward to seeing, like, a complete rotation. And the Rule Zero is almost like this thing, like a torch that you handed around for the Olympics. That'd be pretty cool. You know what I like about the podcast? It can grow, but it'll always feel small in a good way, like niche. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the trick, Jack. Menudo. Chesty's here too. Jesus Christ. You know what? Off topic. I love when I see like Jack and Chesty and Nick and all this, like, I don't want to say small guys because they're not small guys, but I think Chest puts it the best. He's like, I don't need anything from you. I don't want your clout. And so he's kind of like the canary in the coal mine. If I ever turn into a fucking retard, he'll be the first guy to let me know. And he'll let me know by just being done with me. So every time I see him here, I'm like, oh, thank God. That's one more week I haven't gone off the deep end and become a crazy grifter. Thank God for that. One more week, fellas. We can make it one more week before I start inhaling my own farts and stiffing my head up my own ass. We can get there. We can get there together. Together. All right. Let's get Nuke's thing going. Is there anything I missed? No super chats, right? Okay, we're good. Who is the current Ricky Martin? Fuck, who do I even know? Anyways, Ryan hasn't gone about yelling he's the JS. By the way, Kyle, you should have stopped me. I broke my rules of the internet. If you guys don't know, week before last, I was with Kyle and his crew on... I never remember the name of your... I've been on it twice. Do you think I can remember the name of the show? It's like Unintended Consequences or Cerebral something or other. I actually like the show, so by me not remembering it, it really fucking sucks. Here, let me quickly make sure it's you first. Yeah, that's the you. I got to mod you so you can put the link in there. Do me a favor, throw a link to it if you want, or to your channel and that. We can put it on there. But it was funny because at the end I was joking about how like, everybody has to turn and start asking like questions about the JQ and all that, and I'm like, I sent out a bunch of memes about the Austrian painter, and I'm like, all right, I'm just fucking around. Like, don't take any of this seriously. Yeah. Thank you, cognitive vigilance. It's a mouthful. That's the problem. But it was just funny because they're like, I don't get it. The tattoos have 6 numbers. How is there 6 million? Like, yeah, like, never mind. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys. So we're just let's enjoy. I'm gonna do back-to-back erudite slams. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna look for. I got a third one too, so I'll put the 2, and I'm gonna find the third one.
So I used to be a pretty strong feminist. I've actually become a feminist again. Feminists, though, can be some of the worst people you'll ever meet. They can be like some of the most nasty. They'll take advantage of contradictory world values, right? Worldview, which is that like I'm talking about like psychology and mental health for men, and yet I'm in a field that like is overly feminized and shoving drugs down men's throat. And I'm like, and I'm still recommending it because I don't want to lose like the baby out with the bathwater. Just because not all therapists are well trained to work with men. Just because a lot of therapists might even be biased against particularly like incel type men. If they hear misogynistic language at all, they might like shut you down. So and it was just difficult because I didn't want to be like super like nasty and mean or anything.
I think I found it.
Here's a story of a cocky lady who thought her gold standard was legit. Then finally when she got an actual challenge, it all went to shit.
I found it. I was like, I haven't had that one in forever. All right, one more and then we're out. That's it.
I've talked to Ryan Stone once. I'm pretty sure the whole conversation I pushed him like pretty hard.
What was hard, Ariel?
The therapist will essentially give them SSRIs, which I think the sexual effects that SSRIs have on the body, right?
Some. There's tons of like MAOs and like tricyclics that you're talking about, like the type of SSRIs that used to be given to pedophiles. We don't give those to men. We don't give those to men. But he's not as informed as like I think he would like to be. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably haven't seen that one before, Kyle. I've only shown it once or twice. I totally forgot I had it. Like, I'll sometimes go through the old folder list, and I'm like, yeah, I remember this video, and then I'll throw it onto here, so I'll try to get on there. Anyways, thanks for showing up. Let's go check out Nuke. Let's talk about the Rule Zero stuff. Watching live in Alberta. You start before I need to wake up on Saturdays. Oh, it's like an hour or 2 off. It's like 6. You'll be fine. Trust me, I'd have started my show at 6 if I could. Okay, ending it on a quick side note. There's a reason that it's Saturday morning. When I was at that convention that shall not be named, I was my first time coming out. I was a nobody knew who I was. And there was all these time slots. And always the big guys like Rolo and them, they got the really good times. They got Friday just before the bars, Saturday late in the afternoons, like the 5 o'clock spot was the really good one. And so I looked, I'm like, what's the least popular spot ever? Like, what's the one that nobody's, it's Saturday morning. Everybody's hungover and drunk from Friday. Nobody made it to the Saturday one at 9. And so for me, I like that time slot. That's for the guys that weren't at the convention that shall not be named because they wanted to make friends. They were there because they wanted to take in like the speeches from the guys and talk with them. They weren't out Friday till 3 a.m. Or this one guy, for example, which I still remember him, where he was like, he grabbed a hooker on Friday and he wanted to make it to my speech, which I don't know why, but he did. And then he apologized to me. He's like, sorry, I was late. I was at this hooker's place and I couldn't find my way home. And he was looking for forgiveness. And then I ran into him the next year at the same convention that shall not be named. He managed to lose like 50 pounds, started to dress better. He was like much more pleasant to talk to. I was like, dude, after a year, it was nice. Like, that was the reason I'm like, I think this can work. Like, I watched a guy get his shit together in real time. It was pretty awesome. And so, yeah, Saturday morning was like, there's like a reason it's here. And so, yeah, I hope I can impart like a little bit of that. I don't tell that story much because it's not a very good one, but It's mine. It's my story, and it's the one I liked. Yeah, literally missed you that morning. I guess, yeah, you would have too. He was the, what was his handle he used to use? Like, you used Tristan. I think his was Renegade something or other. It's been like years, man. I'm losing the memory. Anyways, have fun, boys. We'll talk to you later. Nuke's doing it. Just stick around. It's automatically going to take you over there.
79T, 2458, Learning Corp, Little Red Riding Hood, take 1.